इसमें
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to all the attendees for the webinar. Welcome to AIBD and ABM webinar on Radio for Children, the Forgotten Audience. My name is Lisa. I'm Program Manager at AIBD, and I will be at MC for this event. First of all, I would like to thank National Academy of Broadcasting Multimedia, NABM India, for partnering with us and supporting us in this venture. And we have with us very distinguished guest from NABM, Mr. Sashi Bhushan Mukesh, Additional Director General, and Mr. P. Das, Deputy Director General, attending with us. Welcome, sir. We are joined today by participants from 13 different countries. Our aim is to create engaging content for children. And I thank each and everyone for joining us to discuss on this very important topic. So allow me to go over the agenda very, very quickly. First, there would be the special opening remarks by Mr. Mukesh, followed by expert presentation and discussion. Then we will move on to the sharing session. We have a case study, a wonderful case study from Nigeria. Next, we will open the floor for all the participants to discuss and ask questions of our speakers and our case studies and give recommendation, which AIBD will compile for future literature. So to start off our event, may I invite Mr. Sashi Bhushan Mukesh, Additional Director General of National Academy of Broadcasting and Multimedia, to give his special remarks. Mr. Mukesh.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. Madam Philomena, Director, Asia Pacific Institute for Broadcasting Development, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Mr. P. Das, Deputy Director General, National Academy of Broadcasting and Multimedia, Delhi, India. Mr. Syed Humayun Quasar, former Head of Program, All India Radio, Srinagar, India. Dr. D.K. Majumdar, Program Executive, National Academy of Broadcasting and Multimedia, Delhi, India. Distinguished speakers, experts, and participants from various countries in the Asia Pacific region attending this international webinar on radio for children, the forgotten audience. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Namaskar. I am very happy that today I am a part of the inaugural ceremony of this international webinar. Really, I am heartily express my pleasure that the Asia Pacific Institute for Broadcasting Development, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and National Academy of Broadcasting and Multimedia, Delhi, India, have collaborated to organize this webinar. And I am more happy that we have gotten together to discuss about a very delicate but very important programming segment in radio. In fact, Dr. Majumdar had been nurturing the idea of this webinar for a long time, and today it has seen the light of day. We all know how radio had been the friend, philosopher, and guide for children over the years. Many popular songs had been taught over the radio to children, and so also radio taught the mother tongue to children. Radio had also groomed the future leaders of nations. But then, are we doing enough for the children of today? Do the children today took upon up to radio for guidance? Are we giving children their adequate space in radio? These are questions which I feel will find their answers in this webinar. Personally, I feel pained that today the children are missing out the warmth of the radio that we, the seniors, had the privilege of. I wonder, can social media take the place of radio for children? Really, I am very eager to know how the other nations in the Asia Pacific region are going about their children programs on radio, especially in their national broadcasters. I wish this webinar all success, and I'm sure that we will arrive at some important conclusions to start with, and I look forward to many more such collaborations with Asia Pacific Institute for Broadcasting Development, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, in the days to come. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mukesh, for that wonderful speech. You have raised many, many very important questions, and I hope that I'm sure that the attendees as well as the experts joining us today will be answering some of the questions, and we will be addressing all of the questions in the days ahead as well. So looking at, as a very famous American author, Jesse Lair has said, children are not things to be molded, but people to be unfolded. Children represent a huge chunk of the global population, and the countries that are represented in today's webinar have some of the highest percentage of children in their respective countries' population. Yet when it comes to content for children, it is disproportionate. Some case studies have indicated that less than 4% of the content created in any kind of platform is for children. So today we are here to understand, to discuss, and to learn from experts who have, despite the odds, created legacies for children content creation. And we have on the panel two very, very distinguished speakers. Ms. Philomena Nanapragasham, our director of AIBD, Asia Pacific Institute for Broadcasting Development, and Mr. Syed Mayun Kaisar, who's the former head of programs for AIR, All India Radio. We have both of them here on the panel who will be discussing, and I would like to invite Ms. Philomena, who needs no introduction. At the tender age of 18, she became Auntie Philo because of her strong branding and her strong content that she has created. She's a multi-award winner with many years of experience. She has vast experience working abroad in Deutsche Welle, Germany, and Radio Australia. She is also an accredited cross-cultural trainer from Deutsche Welle. and she has done many media trainings in Asia Pacific region. She also sits as an industry expert in several universities and advises on media curriculum for communication studies. So I would like to yield my I would like to invite Ms. Philo to give her presentation. Philo, I can't hear you.
Start that. All right. So a very good afternoon, Mr. Shashi Bhushan, from Prasar Bharati, right? And I'm really honored to have you grace this event today, and also to Dr. Mazloom Mudar, who actually initiated this particular webinar, because the first time I met him, he said we should do something for children. And so this has become a reality, and really happy to have Mr. Humayun as well on board. So yeah, so what would I say? Lisa just said that I started doing my children's programs. That was my very first program when I went into RTM. And everyone was saying, how can you do a children's program? You know, you're just 18. And, you know, I just did that for a short while. And then I kind of got addicted to children's programs, because I think for every broadcaster, it's one of the most toughest job actually to relate to children, because we are already adults and the way we think is different. And Mr. Shashi a while ago said that every radio should probably look at giving children some space, giving them the platform to voice what they're thinking. So without much ado, Lisa, can we begin the presentation? Or do I just have to talk and share?
Yes.
Okay, right.
Nabil?
So,
do you want me the audio?
okay, you can play the audio later, but let me just talk first, okay? So be ready with the audio. All right, so what is children's programs? Now, when we talk to people, they always think that children's programs is something where you need a song, and then you need a story, right? And then you just sort of need to talk to children in the way parents talk to them, right? And so I think that's the way many children's programmers will do programs, because they always think that they've got to be a mommy, daddy, or an uncle or an auntie on radio, right? So many of us forget that children are a very, very important group of listeners for radio, okay, and for television viewers. More so for radio, because radio is such an old medium, right? It has been around for decades. And why do I say children's programs are so important for radio? Because I think you're actually creating the next group of listeners, right? A lot of people will tell you that you need to focus on programs in the morning show, the evening show, or some kind of talk show. Yes, all that is important, but that's happening now. So what about future listeners of All India Radio, or future listeners of Radio Television Malaysia or Maldives, any country for that matter, right? Today we need to create new listeners, and radio children's programs actually works towards that. So you create a loyalty pattern through children's programming. And that's why children's programs are so important. Now, the second factor that we're talking about is cultivating the art of listening. Now, you and I know that radio is all about the ears, right? You have to create, you have to make people listen to you. So how do you do that? And that is through radio programming. And we're actually teaching our children how to actually listen, become good listeners, and not just to talk, right? So does that mean that radio personalities are only good at talking and not listening? I don't think that's a right statement, because to me, radio is a theater of the mind. And sometimes what we say can create multiple pictures. And so we teach our children imagination through children's programming. And I think this is a dying art as well, because many children, at least in my part of the world, have stopped becoming, going into books. They're all watching television most of the time, or nowadays they're always on their handphones, right? So the art of actually listening, the art of reading, right? And then the imagination thing that you and I are born with are slowly dying off, simply because the way we consume media has changed. And so I feel that as a radio person, it's so important to have children's programming. Number one, like I said, you create loyal listeners of the future. Two, you're looking at children and cultivating the habit of listening, sparking of their imagination, and also giving them a platform to talk. And that is so important. Today, you and I know that social media has given everyone a platform to talk, right? And our children are on Facebook as well, even though they're not quite the age, or they might be on Quora answering some questions or whatnot. But what's very important is for radio to give children the platform. And that is a very important medium for communication, right? Many years ago, people used radio as a platform to talk about diverse issues. And today, our children should be continued giving them that platform to talk. And I think that's so important as to why we need to create radio as a platform. It's an anonymous platform, as you and I know. And most importantly, it's very important for them to listen to other people's voices, communicate with other people, and not just text, right? So these are some of the points that I want to talk about children's programming. But I think one of the key factors, if you're looking at producing children's program, is to understand your audience. Now, each of these age groups are different. So if you're looking at children below 0 to 3, their needs are totally different. Definitely, if you're going to create content like that, you're looking at a different mechanism. And then if you're looking at children from the ages of 5 right up to 10 perhaps, their needs are different, right? The way they consume information is different. And then you move on to those who are a little bit older, 12 to 15 maybe, and how will they listen to radio, right? What kind of programming will you give to them? How will you talk to them? So all these are factors that you need to look at when you're producing children's programs. So it's not one size fits all. Many of us were told years ago on radio, right? You just have to have a general audience. I still remember when I joined radio, I was told by the people, the so-called icons of radio at that time, Philo, you're broadcasting to a general audience. Now, what is a general audience? I don't think it works anymore. So we have to be specific. So when we talk about children, we need to look at the different age groups. So you're looking at right up to the 3 years, 4-year-old level, and then 5 onwards, and then the level where they are in school, and then teenagers, right? You don't forget about them. You still have to include them because under the UN law, they are also children. So you still need to reach out to them. And the kind of programming that you do really have to cater to the different age groups. Now, in my experience, I'm very lucky because I think the moment I was given a children's program, I decided to then take up my studies because I went off to study on, child psychology and children's early childhood education. So these were some of the things that I took up so that I'm better equipped to understand the children's needs, right? So that really helped me to understand and reach out to children. And also the exposure that I had in Deutsche Welle working with children's programs really opened up my mind. And I think then I began to look at it in a very different way. And that's one of the reasons why I won many awards for my children's programs. Now, I will play one of the public service announcements I did specifically. It's not just for children, but for adults. So the big question here is, are children the only listeners of children's programs? And should we only be targeting at children? Right, you can't help it. When Malaysian radio began, we had only one radio station. So children's programs were also listened to by adults. So sometimes it was very interesting because some of the programs that I did, I went out to meet the children. That means I made a point to go to schools. Because how do you produce a program if you don't know who you're catering for? You don't even know how your audience looks like, right? So I used to visit schools and then meet the children and then get them to talk, share their experiences, like what is it like to make friends? What are some of the things that you're most scared about in the world? Have you asked children about the COVID fears that they might have? We didn't have COVID then, but there were other fears that children had. And they shared all this. I still remember one program that I did where I asked children to talk about their parents Of course, it was anonymous. No names were given. It's radio. And this child actually talked about how her mother comes home from work and she wished that her mom stayed at home. And every day when the mother came home, she was always scolding them, and all she wanted to hear was, Mom, I just want to hear you ask me, how was your day today? And that child actually spoke on the radio. And very much later, the mother gave me a call and said, Philo, it's my daughter who called you. And I want to say thank you because I actually understand my child better now. I didn't know that I was pushing my kid so much. And all she wanted was for me to just say, how are you today? Right? So sometimes radio has created those kind of, connections between parents and children. And of course, the parents are the secondary listeners. The children are the main people. So, and as an adult, I think it has opened up the eyes of many, many listeners in Malaysian radio on the thoughts of children. Because many of us assume that children should just be taught things to read and write and, sing a song and that's it. But there's more to them. You've got to engage them, talk to them, and find out what they really think. They have a lot of stories to tell you. And that's my rich heritage of what children's programming is about. I think I'm still passionate about it, which is why a couple of months ago we did Children in the Pandemic. And everybody was asking me, Philo, how come you're doing this? Because we wanted to hear what children thought about the pandemic. Okay, so I won't keep on talking because there are many eminent speakers, but I'm going to let you listen to one program that I did. The last one I did before I left RTM. And this one has won an international award. It's on water. So actually it's meant for adults as well as children, but take a listen. Nabil, you can play that now. Thank you.
Just a moment.
Yeah. So this is actually a public service announcement and it's on water, the importance of water, but telling the story in a different way. Right. So there are many duration. Nabil, are you all right?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Mommy, what color is water?
Yes, tell us, what color was water when you were younger?
Let's see, water was crystal clear, like sparkling.
But what is the color? What is it like?
Well, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Water is clear.
But what is clear, Mommy? What is the color?
Let's see, clear, children, is like, you can see through it, like glass.
But Mommy, why is the color of water brown now? It is not like you said.
Yes, Mommy.
Pollution, children. That's what it is, pollution.
Who did that?
People like us, and all the activities, cutting down trees, dumping waste.
But it is not fair.
Well, life is never fair.
But it's not fair, Mommy. We didn't pollute.
You didn't pollute, but people before you did.
So why should we suffer for what they have done?
Why, Mommy?
What will we say to our children for all the mistakes we have done? How will we describe the true color of water? Let's work on leaving a precious heritage for our children, so that generations to come will know that water is life.
View the panoramic Malacca Historical City at 110 meters above sea level from the Kaming Sari Tower.
Okay, so it's back to you, Lisa. It's not a kiddie show, but it was a public service announcement for water done with children, but I think it's for everybody who wants to know about the importance of water. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Philo. Thank you so much for that. You've raised very important points actually on creating listeners. You are right. We are actually losing the art of listening anymore because we are bombarded by images on everything, on every medium. But it is also true that listening part, especially the podcasts and things that are coming up. So hopefully there is hope at the end of the tunnel, and we will have more listeners and more new formats that are coming in that will help gain engagement. Thank you so much, Philo. So now we have Mr. Syed Humayun Kaisar, former head of programs for AIR. He has 3 decades of broadcasting experience and production of over 10,000 programs to his name. He's a media trainer and consultant with BBC World Service Trust, Ford Foundation, and Panos South Asia. Mr. Kaisar is a visiting faculty of several universities across India, including Academic Staff College. He has mentored hundreds of youth, and he has conferred over 50 awards on different fields, from broadcasting, painting, counseling, field of sports. And he's known for innovative content creation. So I hand over to Mr. Kaisar for his presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Lisa, for inviting me, and I'm grateful to Mr. Shashi Bhushan, Ms. Philu, Dr. Dipin Mozumdar, and Lisa, you for introducing me. In a way, you did introduce me. I'm grateful. Well, we are talking of children here, and we are talking of children, the forgotten audience. Let me start with that itself. Why are children forgotten audience? I'll be finishing it quickly and then moving on to programming also. Children are consumers, but they are not decision makers. They don't spend money, and you don't get sponsors on radio for children program. This could be one of the aspects that most of the FM stations do not have children programs. It's only in India regional stations, and the stations of All India Radio have children program, not FM programs. FM stations, they have gone to kind of a sports, pranks, films, entertainment, music of all kinds and all that, but no children program. And then the best podcast, if you go to internet also, you will see have either music or stories for children. Is there nothing more to children? Just stories, telling them stories and playing music for children, and our job is done. So that's our part. Now the second part is, maybe we are not able to attract them. It's not that they are not listening. Are you attracting them? Are we able to attract children to listen to us? Attraction does not mean I produce program in studio and tell so many things to them in which they are not involved themselves. They are not participating. When I had spent over 15 years in broadcasting, one day, well-known theater, TV, radio actor, director, writer came to me and told me that you should be doing children program. He was rather apologetic, because we always thought that B-grade producers would be doing children program. We thought it, like, I'm not saying me, myself, it was the environment we were growing up in. And he told me, you should be doing children program. I listened to him and I didn't ask anything. And then after 1 month, my director tells me, would you like doing children programs? I thought the news has traveled. I said, yes, I'll do children programs. When I went to children program, what I could, as Ms. Philu has also said, what I could find was there would be an elder brother, Baijan, or elder sister, Didi or Baji. She would come to a program. She will talk non-stop, and then play music, which has been played 1,000 times over on radio from films, and then ask children certain questions. And then they will say, I will want to present something. They'll present a rhyme which has been presented 500 times. They will sing a song 1,000 times. It has already been presented. They will tell you a story which is written by someone else. And that would be your children program. And there would be a gathering of 10 or 12 children. This wasn't what I had perceived, what idea I had in mind of a children program. When I took children program, I took those Baijan and Bajis or sisters, elder sister or brother to a side. I told them all the content will be created by children. All the initiatives will be taken by children. All the things we'll be doing in the program will be told by children. You'll be a catalyst and will mold their ideas, will not reject their ideas, will not snub them, that you are not going to do this, you are not going to do that. As we have told you, you will do like that. No, I let them get free. I called the music I played in the program. In the program itself, 10, 9, 12-year-old children would come, with one with tabla, one with guitar, another with a banjo or a flute. They will play there. Some of them will sing there. All of them will enjoy it and then relate to it and tell them, let's add this to it, subtract that to it. And then the program became, more important for children, more successful in a way. And then another thing that happened with that was we started attracting 70, 75 children in studios for the program itself, not to speak of the people who are the children who are outside listening to us. So an environment was created. I started a language session also of 3.5 minutes, how to speak English, so how to speak better your mother tongue, how to address people. What it helped me in a way was that I could feel now that even parents had started listening. Because as Ms. Philu said, you cannot take children out of the family and create a program for them. The important aspect of all the programs is that you get somewhere into it, the family as well. So certain things that are being said, family should listen to it. And then you have to create interest in the program so that family also gets into it. Well, what with the passage of time, I went ahead. What I did was I covered their cross-country runs of the schools, camps of the schools, events of the schools, competitions, art, painting, sports, everything. I sent my children to go there, record children, and then present it on radio. And then we had started an FM. I would, do one thing, that send a child of say 12, 13 years to the venue and get him directly live through mobile phone, on air on FM, that this is happening and these children are performing or doing this and these children are reporting. That's why you take radio to children to get them back to radio. It's not that we cater to people 10, 20, 15, 30, 70 in a studio and that's our job is done. No. And then again, we send the signal out. Then how the signal is received, we have to know that also. And in that case, when you have your presence in the children, among the children, they may be in school, I sent my children to sports fields, record people who are playing, children who are playing on Sunday. Let's talk to them. Let's present them on radio. Those 30, 40 children would tell other 30 children will be on radio on this day. You can listen to us. So you can say the circle kept on increasing. More people or more children got involved. It's basically what I felt at a point of a time when I was doing the program, before that also, that we were catering to those 10 present in the studio. We're not thinking of hundreds who are listening to us or hundreds we want they should listen to us. That way, you have to take radio to children also. This cannot all be done by evening stories, bedtime stories, and rhymes and songs. We had enough of that. We had enough of that on radio. The things have changed. People have more choices. Children have choices. We have to live up to those choices of children also. And now, once the parent got involved, the host of the program, a child and an adult, they could put together certain questions, certain queries, certain things which we directly, indirectly wanted the parents to listen to, and the parents were listening and responding. They were responding in different manners, different ways, and they were suggesting that if you include this thing also, my child at home adopts that easily, what you tell on radio or what other children tell or share on radio, rather than when I tell that very child what to do and what not to do. Here, coming to do's and don'ts, what the issue here is for all of us, and most of us, say it, be it home or be it radio. We come out with sermons for children, and sermons don't last long, and the listening power or the ears are switched off by the children. We have too many don'ts in our programs. Don't do that. That is not to be done. Don't go there. Don't. Instead of don't, we could change it a bit in the programs. Instead of saying don't go there, you tell him the reason. If you go there, this will happen. We don't do that. And there are so many no's in our life. for children, that's on radio also. If you want to go out, no. If you want to meet a friend, no. We could change it a bit. Create a situation where you could say, yes, tomorrow, together we'll go to this place, instead of saying no. That way you attract children to your program, and this applies to your family and home as well. And then another aspect of our programming on children is we have to be as concise as possible, because we also know they may tune you out. That means that radio is on, but he's not, or she is not listening to you. So that way we have to make it attractive also. And then another aspect is, I think, which we are forgetting, is that everybody has a radio in his pocket or her pocket. The children also have radio in pocket. That means mobile is your radio. You cater to them through at any time, anywhere. But again, the language of the program that is to be used, not patronizing at all. We don't need patronizing language, and today's children don't prefer patronizing language. One is the language, another is the time at which the program is broadcast, and then there is the sensitivity of the children, as Ms. Philu also said. Sensitivity. We have to cater to the sensitivity of children, which at times we forget. We think as adult and perceive things as adult and believe that the children also are thinking on the same lines as me at the age of 40, 30, 50 or 60 is thinking. Here again. And then the second aspect of the same very thing is understand how children perceive the world. We have to understand how children perceive the world from their point of view. Here, when children are heard, then only this can happen. If children are not heard, then this cannot happen. And every child to adult finds a certain kind of a power in words and wants to have certain kind of a power. And the child also aspires for it in his or her own manner and little ways. That I should also get some say in certain things. And that is to be cultivated in our program, right? And then I'll be ending it. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe one more minute, and then we will move on to the next segment.
Right. Well, I'll be ending it with what Cat Stevens had written a song called "Where Do Children Play?" Well, towards the end of the song, he says, "Oh, I know we have come a long way. We are changing day to day. But tell me, where do children play?" Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. That was wonderful listening to you. You are right. We need to listen to children and not just listen to them follow a script, but they need to articulate, and we need to listen to their thoughts. And as Philo also mentioned, every child is different, every age group is different, and what one child is saying may not be related to the other child. So we need to be very, very careful of that. So one point that you mentioned that I really liked is live up to the choices of the children. We need to do that as content creators. And now I would like to actually invite Ms. Philo in as well, and maybe you can have like a 15-minute discussion. Please share your experiences. You both have a very extensive experience working in this field, especially on content production, and passionate about children's content production. So I would ask you both to please share your personal journey.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Humayun. That was quite interesting sharing that you did for children's programming. And I do agree that for many people, being given a children's program, you can't consider it as an honor, because it's always something where, okay, that goes, you're supposed to be only talking to kids, you know, the other people are getting the brighter programs, I mean, those which require more intellect. So, you know, that was the first shock that I received initially. I was a teenager who wanted to, you know, I used to read all the most happening news of the world, but I was given a children's program. So it was really, really a difficult and for me to understand that. But what stupid program that was given to me became an award-winning program for my country. So I actually garnered 10 international awards just for children's program for Malaysia. I think I'm the only person with that many awards for kiddies programs in my country. I don't know elsewhere, but that was because I was really passionate. And I think it's not easy to do a children's program, and because I like what you said, because today content makers, radio stations like All India Radio, we have so many traditional mediums around, right? And are we going to be around? Are our children who are going to be adults going to consume what we're giving them on radio? Mr. Shashi, you have a big job, to make sure that whether the future of India is going to listen to radio or not, it really depends on what you're going to do today. And whether, content makers or policy makers are going to give that importance to radio. So giving importance to radio also means giving space for children. Do you agree with that, Humayun?
Yeah, Ms. Vilu, what you are saying is absolutely correct about children. The aspect is that when we are doing a program, we are creating adults for future, definitely through our programs. But, there'll be adults in, say, some years' time. Are we preparing? The another issue is very sensitive, which I have faced. I'll relate a story to it also, is that are we preparing these children to face success as well as failure or not? In case all the time our parents, what they do is you will succeed in everything you do because your neighbor has succeeded, your brother has succeeded, your sister has succeeded, someone else has succeeded, and then only success, success, success. In case you don't succeed in life, you are not prepared to handle that situation, and we are not preparing children. It's not that you bombard with the bombardment is to be done on them. But I'll relate a story what I said. Well, when I was in radio, say around it was around 17, 18 years ago. I get a call from my from the reception at the radio. There is a 16, 17-year-old boy, very much agitated. He wants to see you. Well, I said, let him in, please. So he came to my room. He sat in front of me. He was quite angry with himself and with me as well. And the first thing he said to me was, I want to commit suicide. The first thing, I want to commit suicide. I was taken aback. I said, you want to commit suicide? Why? Because he told me, you say youngsters can do so many things in the world. I can do nothing in the world. That's why I want to commit suicide. Well, I started talking to him. I said, have tea and all that. And then I asked him, what's the reason? Why do you want to commit suicide? When I'm saying that we are not preparing these 16, 17-year-old to face world or to say changing situation in teenage, then he tells me that I have qualified my 11th, 12th and all that, and I have got reasonable marks. My father wants me to be an engineer and study for that. I don't want to be an engineer. I said, you have good marks, you can sit in competition and qualify. So, but I don't want to sit in that. As you said, every child has a different story and a background, and direct reactions are different. This child is telling me, I want to commit suicide because you tell you can do anything, I can do nothing. I said, what's wrong with it in you doing engineering if you can qualify the entrance exam? He tells me, my father did the same thing when he was young. He never got a job. He's a teacher in private school. So why should I be like him? Because he wants me to be like him. I don't know what to do. I want to commit suicide. So that is a situation where I feel that we don't prepare with these nursery rhymes and with bedtime stories and all those things. They are very good for toddlers. We don't prepare children to face the world they are entering. And that is an issue which is very serious with children in my region.
Okay. Yes, that's an interesting story. And you have to be pretty careful there when somebody wants to commit suicide. And if you say the wrong thing and they die, then you're going to be held up for the rest of your life on that one, right?
Well, so, I talked to him. I told him that I'll send you to a person. Will you go to him and talk to him? And he said, if you tell me, I will. I called him and he went to a psychologist who brought him back.
That's an interesting story. But then, one of the things that we also need to look at when we are children's programmers is ask ourselves this question. Are we just going to be didactic? That means, are we just going to be teachers or ensure that they go in the right direction because their parents are already there for them? But what kind of content we give for children also should be allowing the child to think for himself. Right, and for them to hear other children their peers on how they speak. That's why the age group is so important. If you're dealing with those who are 13, 14, 15, they might have a lot of growing up issues, right? They have growing up issues, there's bullying issues.
Very true.
Right? That's a different kind of content that you might look at children. And even the way you speak to them is a little bit different. But when you talk about younger children, I think sometimes many children's programmers, what they do is they probably might take something out of the encyclopedia or books and then just give it to kids, you know. You're also playing the role of teacher, right? So is that the right way to do children's programs? What do you actually give them? Right? Homayoun, let me ask you this question because you've been a children's content maker. What do you give to kids who are 10?
It's very interesting. You know, in your program also, you start a class. You become a teacher. And a different kind. You are teaching a different kind of syllabus. Then they will not be attracted to it. They will not
absolutely.
like it.
Absolutely.
They will not like it.
I think that's the first thing you have to learn, that you cannot be a teacher on the radio because they have education TV for that or education radio for that. So a radio personality, right? Today, especially today, we are living in a world where children have so many kinds of medium. They're having multiple platforms available. And so radio has to be really exciting for children today, right? And most often we undermine children, but we are also having a lot of interesting platforms for us to communicate with them. Many years ago, I remember that my colleagues were using letters. They used to get a lot of letters, you know, and then, you know, they used to open the mail, right? And children took the time to write snail mail those days. Today, I don't think anybody even wants to write you an email. Because we're living in a text, right? We're living in a text society. So what I'm saying is that radio program makers have to change with the times. And organizations have to look into new methodologies of communication, meaning that we should be already engaging WhatsApps on our radio programs, right? Texting, encouraging children to talk. The whole important thing is helping children to understand that they have a special platform for themselves, just like everybody else, and that this is a space for them to share what they want. And so the role of the radio personality who's handling a children's program today is very different. It's like talking to children on issues that might interest them, not just books. You're giving them things to think about, throwing a question and then getting them excited about it, and then getting their thoughts on many things. Like, for instance, I remember doing a program on water, and I asked children, you know, hey, what do you think? You know, can you picture a world without water? Can you imagine how it's like? And then they start thinking. So, and then it also made the adults think, because we don't normally ask ourselves that kind of questions. So it was very interesting. The way we are going to do children's content today on radio has to be engaging a lot of multi-platforms. One. Number two, the kind of things that we are giving them has to be things which are relevant and of interest to children. Yeah, Homayoun, it's your turn now.
Yeah, absolutely right. You know, so many platforms are being used, and we have to, you know, they are in competition with us also, but we can also use them. Even radio can use social media to promote its programs and itself. And then, because if people have access to social media, and even adults as well as children, you know, on FB, you know, the profile of a 10-year-old saying I'm 18-year-old, 10-year-old is very much there. So you promote your programs, those things, and you have a competition with them as well. And then another aspect is that there are children who are talented. The children are talented. Maybe some children are good at writing, some are good at painting, some are good in sports, some children are good, you can say, in singing or playing instruments. They also have to be given a platform. Those children with talent who want to perform, they know you can. It happens. It must be happening at other places also. The young achievers, the children who have done something extraordinary, something different, they become part of the program to ignite interest in other children about the same very aspect or same very sport or same very game or same very art or excellence in education also. It's not that we say no, you don't excel in education also. So those children who have done something different or excelled in some field can be part of the program, and can act as, certain kind of a catalyst for other people, other children to get attracted to those things. And that has been happening all over the place, that we get children. And the first thing I said was the children with talent to do something need a platform. India used to have, throughout the world, we only had, All India Radio only had that. We had a youth service, Yuvavani service, which catered totally to youth. Youth would come, perform, play, do everything. Now that has been shelved, and FM of All India Radio have taken that job. Once you get out of this age of 15, 16, you move to 17, 18, there is a radio still to handle you, and that's All India Radio, which handles you very well as youth. But again, here, as you also said, if you turn the studio into a classroom, you will not attract people, And again, if we say we go into sermons and we all the time tell them what to do, instead of making them make their own decisions, put questions in front of them, and then let them relate to questions and come up with anything, which may sound stupid to some, doesn't matter at all. Give them chance to say.
Okay. So you're very passionate about giving them something. All right. I think, Humayun, when you're talking about those who are beyond 15, 16, right? That's a totally different ball game altogether. Right. That requires a different kind of approach, right? So if you're looking at those who are 16 plus, you're actually looking at them understanding their peers better. So means that they want to hear another teenager talk to them. They don't want to hear you or me talking to them, right? They have had enough of parents, enough of teachers, enough of mentors. They're probably looking at their own peers. Right.
In case of children also, if you're 10, 12-year-old, there are young children who are achievers in some field, who are good at something. They can become, your role model for other children also. They can be part of program as well. Why not?
Yes. Fantastic. I think this role model story is pretty interesting because that's what's lacking in today's world. You don't have enough role models. You don't have enough people that you look up to. Right? Because that has disappeared over time. Today you only hear of the villains. They're more famous than the heroes, right? So if you ask a child, what do you want to be like? They probably might say some villain from a Hindi film, or some bad guy somewhere who is making. They might even want to be some president who's not so popular, things like that. So that's villains are really famous. Social media has made them famous also. So that's why it's so important when you talk about giving stuff on radio. It's also to give them good role models, and that works really well with teenagers and so forth, and even young children, right? And I think when you're talking about younger children, it's teaching them different things, not really teaching, but letting them talk about their thoughts on the environment, on friends, right? On understanding parents. There's a lot of understanding, a lot of ways of looking at it. And also to show achievers, like you said, you actually spotlight some achievers. But you've got to be careful that each child is unique, Like if you only show achievers, then there are parents who will say, "Oh, look at that child on the radio. No wonder he's on the radio. You are no good. Nobody interviewed you." Those kind of things also happen because parents always like to compare. So that's why a radio or a television program has to be something which is very cleverly planned, articulated, in order to ensure that every child is included and not left out, and not having this feeling that I'm not good enough, that's why I'm not on radio or something. So when I used to do children's programs, teachers always choose, when I tell a school that, hey, I'm coming to your school to do this program, I know that the teachers will select for me 10 of the best kids who are the highest achievers, right? Because they want to project those children in my program. And then what I will do is I'll tell them, look, I'll choose thank you for this, but I'm also going to snoop around because I'm a journalist. I need to look at everybody. So what I do is randomly I pick out any child, a poor looking kid or a child who's very shy, and I try to get everybody involved. And then, you become, I wasn't playing a popularity game, but it worked on the children because they remember you, Auntie Philo. And many of these
Yeah.
children have grown up, and then when they see me now, they'll say, "Do you remember me? I was on your program. Do you remember
Yeah.
me? I was the kid who called you." So
Right.
there's a
Right.
lot of what do you call that? A lot of good moments being a children's program producer, and I think that's what we need to be. We need to give every child a chance to talk, to share, because there is no one who is wrong, and the brightest kid, no one is wrong, and every child should be given an opportunity.
Right. Well, I think we are on the same page here, because when I also went to schools, I did the very same thing. They would select their best children and present them to me. I said, no, but there are 500 others sitting also. They will feel neglected also. They will feel rejected as well. So let's get them involved also. Talk to them, get their answers, let them say something, and they may have better ideas, better things to share than those selected few who have been taught by teachers what to say. That's also an issue. They have been told by teachers, yeah, you have to say this, but the other one who has not been told what to say comes up with something very interesting.
Something really brilliant, yeah. So my perception, very true, Humayun, my perception is there is no stupid child. There are only stupid adults. Right, I'm a firm believer in that, because I think that we have so much to learn from children. I was not an A-star student in school, right? I remember my teachers calling me stupid also sometimes. And, if today they look at me, they were like, "Oh, you're Philo. Oh my God, you're so brilliant." They'd say something like that. And I would just laugh and say, "Really? Okay, I heard something else when I was in school." So I'm a firm believer that kids, they're like for instance, Maria Montessori, she says that children are like a flower, like a bud, right? And every child blooms differently. Okay, so and as radio programmers or television producers, anybody who's dealing with children, we have to understand that there are different phases in children's learning capacity and so forth. So it's up to us. We're not the parents, we're not the teachers. We got to be clear about that. There are a lot of questions on our chat who's asking me how to teach children.
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
Just one thing.
Okay.
Basically,
sorry.
The issue here.
I will allow Kaiser to finish.
As you said about stupid children, we are judgmental all the time in case of children. That is the reason why children don't listen to you or listen to us. Judgmental. You are stupid. That fellow is better. This fellow is wrong. You are not correct. That's the issue. Don't be judgmental in programs and otherwise as well.
Yes, I agree with you. Yes, Lisa, there's lots of questions on the chat.
Yes, of course. We will be opening the chat up later, and whoever has been asking questions, thank you so much. But please save your questions because you will be allowed to ask them in person to all the speakers here. So just hold on to your questions very quickly. But before we go to the next portion, very quickly, a question for both of you, right? You both mentioned going to schools and talking to children and not allowing the school system to dictate which children will go on your program. And by doing that, by asking other children in, and they have later on asked you that you've been on the program. So my question is, by doing so, do you think that you've created a more open people who will be more open to the medium of radio? Is that how it is, or
Radio is sorry, Humayun, may I answer this question? Right.
Yes, please.
I think it's nothing about radio or opening to radio. I think it's just valuing a human being for what they are. Right? Very often when I go to schools, I see a child who's really shy and he or she looks at me and smiles. They point when you're doing the recording and then they look at you, but they dare not talk. And these are the children sometimes that, of course, they understand later, oh, she's from this radio. I'm going to listen to this radio because of her. So in a way, Lisa, you are right. But also the human factor of touching each individual is also something that I look at, besides, of course, the radio branding thing. Humayun?
Yeah, you are absolutely right here. I'll tell you my example. When I was in 6th standard myself, we used to go to camp for 7 days. My school used to take us. On campfire day, radio came to our campfire. And somehow they found they talked to children who were performing, and they wanted to talk to me also. They came to me, put a mic in front of me and told me, tell us something. I wasn't able to open my mouth. Then a teacher came. He told me a joke in my ears that you say this joke and then speak in front of mic. I was still not able to say a single word in front of the mic. That was me, and that is me today also. So, as you said, no child is stupid. No child is blank. Every child has something to say. Maybe with a period of time, the child learns how to say it.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for both of you for that wonderful session. It just flew by. But we have to move on. So we are moving on to the next session. But before we do, Nabil, can we start the polling process? Because we have a few questions for our participants here. Those are some polls we would like your input on. The first one is sort of a general knowledge one. So yeah, there you go. On your screen, you have a poll now. Just please click. Let's see how it goes.
Right.
Can all the attendees and all the panelists see the poll?
Yeah.
I will give you 30 more seconds to finish up the poll. Nabil?
Yeah, we still have got only 27% of the votes. So I would definitely like to encourage everyone to vote their opinion.
This is completely anonymous. I see we have a lot of questions. We have very active, wonderful participants here with many questions. Please hold on to your questions. We will be coming to you shortly. Nabil?
44% people have voted. 52% now. 18 people have voted, and still, I think maybe we can give them 30 more seconds, and then we can end the poll.
There are some questions that need some thought. Especially the last two one. So while we are looking at the polling, while they are polling, both the experts, right? Both of you have been managers, have been in management positions in channels. Mr. Kaiser, I think Mr. Kaiser is having some internet problem. Philo?
Right. Yes, Ms. Lisa, I can hear you.
Okay, so no, I was maybe if you can remove your hat of content producer and put on the hat of the management or the manager and allocating a program head. How do you allocate, airtime for children? Very quickly though.
I was that also. I was heading the station as well. So we had two programs, 30 minutes each for children, but they were weekly programs. Both in common language, basically one in Kashmiri, one in Urdu and that, but none in dialect. That's what I'm feeling now as a manager. You have to cater to those children also who don't really are good at the main languages, but are good at dialects, or dialects are spoken in their home, they understand them better.
Okay, Philo, would you like to answer that? Philip? Your mic is, yes.
Yeah, okay, I got it. Right. I think, we don't have that many dialects here. So in Malaysia, it's always like in Tamil, Chinese, Malay, and English. These are the four kind of languages that we use in this country. So, of course, the English program, which I was heading that station. So we had a children's program, and it catered for a multiracial society and the upper class people who actually spoke English. So it was a different group of children that we were catering to. And then they had children for the Indian programs, and then the Chinese programs, and the Malay programs. So every language had a children's program. But to answer Lisa's question, what kind of timing or how much of duration is given to children's programs? It's very funny because people tell me that nobody wants to listen to anything which is very long. And children also don't want to listen to long grandmother stories. And today, everybody should follow the advertising style of 30 seconders and 1 minute or 2, or 2 minutes is even considered long. So there are many, many thinking ideas, ways of thinking. But in my opinion, as a radio person, and I hope there are, people, decision makers like Shashi is also inside this program, it's very important to understand that advertisers will dictate things. But if you want to cultivate a society that actually thinks and learns to listen, you also must play the role of giving people something good to listen to. Very often we underestimate. When I was in radio, people used to tell me, the private channels are only playing music. That's because nobody wants to listen to anybody talk. They only want music. All right. They say, the station's tagline is like 24 hours non-stop music. Now, I asked one question. I said, you're a human being. If I wanted 24 hours non-stop music, I'd probably be going on Spotify or, just playing my YouTube back to back. I'm not going to have anybody talk. But the reason why we need to talk on radio and why it's important to interview, to have human beings engaging on radio is because we as humans need to identify with other humans. And we have this innate urge in us to hear people talk. This is something that all radio people should understand. We want to see and hear people talk. I don't want to hear a robot talking. So that's why even children, we need to give them the space to talk and let them hear other children talk. So the duration of children's program cannot be too short because you need to make it interesting. That's why radio programmers are here today, to learn some tactics perhaps. But importantly also, the time factor is also a consideration. What time would you put a children's program? Would it be in the morning? Would it be in the afternoon? Would it be in the evening? Or is it at night? At night, the parents would say, no, they need to go to bed. So what's the best time, right? And I've seen, coming back to some questions that are on the chat, it's very interesting that people ask that during this COVID lockdown, right? There's a lot of children at home. This is where radio can create good content or specific talk shows for children. Today, I think we have migrated from half-an-hour programs to talk shows. So I would really look at talk shows on radio for young children or teenagers alike.
Okay, thank you.
It helps. Yeah.
Yes. Nabil, if we are ready with the poll answers before we move on to the next segment.
Yeah, you want me to share the poll results?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So it's on your screen.
So what is the global population of children 0 to 14? Yes. 26% yes. Most of you are correct. How many children program does your station have? Less than 5. And which is the next one?
How many children participate in your program? Less than 10. 47% people have.
Okay.
Right?
Would you like to go through the rest of that?
Yeah, so the last question was that what prevents you from producing more children's program? So 21% people have mentioned lack of trained staff, and 32% have mentioned lack of funding as the main reason that prevent them to produce more children program. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Nabil. Okay, so we will be moving on to our next segment, where we have a wonderful content creator from Nigeria, Miss Babando Ifeoma Aliande, or Miss Nwando, Assistant Chief Producer, Voice of Nigeria. She has 13 years of experience at VON, and she has created many wonderful award-winning programs. And today she will be sharing with us her experience and giving a short presentation. Ms. Nwando? Swando.
Yeah, hello.
Hello, Ms. Wando. How are you doing? So lovely
I'm
to see
very
you.
well. Same here. Okay, so it's such a pleasure being here and listening to everyone. I produce drama for my station, and I've had the opportunity to work with children in my years of producing drama. And well, it's been an experience. I wouldn't say that I would match up to my seniors, Philo and Mr. Kaiser, who have been like veterans, but it's been a great experience for me, having to work with children over the years. I would say over 12 years or thereabout, working with children in their various stages, because I've had to work with children from as young as 5 up until adolescence, So I've worked with them at various stages, drama, and having discussion programs with them, radio. I've done a bit of stage and a bit of TV with them. So I kind of work with them, and I get to see the various nuances and various ways we children are different in their own different spaces. So having to work with them in their different spaces, you try to understand the way they do things, or try to come into their thinking or understanding their perception before you are able to actually get them to do what you want them to do, So those are the challenge, part of the things I've experienced. Okay, so my journey, so I one of the programs that actually got me into limelight per se, in that sense, was a program I produced for children by children, with children, and I had a range of children from the ages of 6 to I think 10 as at that time, and it was a play, and I remember having to sit with them, and we had to have a discussion, and I said, okay, this is the storyline, what do you understand, and I was amazed. I was amazed at what they could tell me about the story. I was amazed about how they were able to interpret the roles, without there was just so much excitement around them, and they just were able to interpret the roles. So it was a lot easier going into the studio. But of course, with kids, there's a lot of pampering, a lot of having to come to their level, a lot of having to play around with them, and then you now say, okay, they're getting serious now. Let's just record this, So I don't know if the audio is ready. Then I would like to talk a bit about this particular story. It's a very short clip from one of my productions. It's titled My Best Friend. And it was born out of something that happened to a child that I knew, So I tried to do a story around it, a play around it. So I don't know if that's ready to begin.
Ms. Nwando, we are having some issues with the audio. Can you play it from your side?
Okay.
So maybe you can try screen sharing mine. Let me try for.
Lisa, you can share your
Yes.
screen.
Voices of happy children playing without a care in the world. Isn't it so intriguing? The innocence of children, free from all worries, and yet it's this innocence that makes them the most vulnerable to all sorts of societal mischief, not just within the larger society, but even amongst themselves. Not only are children vulnerable to adults, they are also vulnerable to fellow children.
Ify, where are you? Your school bus is here. Chineke, Ifeoma, what are you doing under the table? Come on, you'll be late for school. Do you want to miss your school bus?
I don't want to go to school, Mommy.
But why?
Inifreka and I had a quarrel.
Ndefreke, your friend in school. But that's not enough reason for you not to go to school.
She took my biscuit from my bag and I told her to put it back and she put it back. And I wanted to give her some. She was angry.
Don't worry, I'm sure she'll talk to you today. She was just being naughty.
I don't want to go to school.
Is that why you are crying? Okay, come on, dry your eyes. See now, you've missed your school bus. I'll take you to school and talk to your teacher about Ndefreke.
Okay, so that's a very short clip from my docudrama I produced and wrote. It's titled My Best Friend. And that was born out of the fact that usually whenever I have to do stories that I have to do with children, I try to sit in their space. I try to observe them. I try to go back into my own childhood and see things that, whether I liked or things that I didn't like, and try to bring those stories out. So this particular story is about bullying in school. And I remember having to, because this child that acted, the child actor in this particular play she was five or thereabout, I think 5 or 6, and I remember, at that age, they're still learning how to read. I remember giving her the script, asking her, can you read? How would you interpret this role? And by the time she was done with that particular scene, it was so intriguing for me because she was crying. And I asked, why? Why are tears in your eyes? That part you heard with the tears, there are actually tears coming out of her eyes. And I said, why? Why are you crying? And I now asked, I said, do you understand what it means? Do you know what bullying is about, And then she now talked about a particular friend. And that's why she opened up and talked about a friend in school who bullies, So she could actually relate to that. And she brought out the reality in that, in that particular play, for me. And it was such an enlightening experience for me. It was such a big thing, and then you would wonder, just like what Mr. Kaiser said, they're not stupid. The children are actually not stupid. They know. Someone that young, and she was able to express to me certain feelings she had, and she could put that into the play and into the character. She was able to mold that character so well. So those are part of the experiences I've had working with children. Of course, you've had situations where you have in production where the child melts down. You have a meltdown and then you don't know what to do with the child, and the child's all tantrums and all that, I've had situations where I've had to promise the moon. I've had to promise the moon, so that we can just do the production and all. But in all, it's been very, very enlightening, Yeah, very demanding. Not many people want to work with children. People seem to want to run away from them. They just feel, where do you get the energy from? But I usually tell people, if you're going to have to work with kids, you have to come down to their level. You have to be like a child, So sometimes when they come around and I have the opportunity to work with them, we play first of all, we go down to the studio, we play, I listen to what they have to say, I just listen to them and I laugh at what they have to say, whether it makes sense to me. And most of them say, okay, Auntie, I say, yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. And then that helps to help them It reduces the tension in the studio, and they get so excited because, hey, this is their world and they just want to be heard. It will shock you how much they want to be heard. I remember going to do a production with a child in the SOS in the orphanage, and this child, Ashley, was such an orator. I was in awe. She was such an orator, and I was like, who wrote this script? And I was told she was the one that wrote the script herself, and she talked about child abuse. You know, there's so much to children, there's so much to them, you know, and it's just like, well, we just think we are so didactic, we teach them. Sometimes you have to learn from them. You sit down in their own space and then learn from them, you know, so that's it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nwando. The wonderful sharing experience. You are right, we need to learn from them, and you are also right that we need to have more experience, especially with creating children's content, and we need to ask them what they want to see, what they want to hear before we actually create things. So thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I would like to open up our the webinar to all the panel. Nabil, if we can promote everybody as the panelists. So we want to have a very passionate discussion with all the panelists here. They have wonderful questions on our question panel and chat, and everybody wants to ask a lot of questions to our experts. So I would like to open up the floor to all and everybody. I hope we have a very good discussion right now, and many recommendations can come from it, so we can actually create literature, and then we can share it with our members and with other content creators as well. So while Nabil is promoting everybody, I have a question, and it is for everybody as well, especially for radio that is coming on, and new ways of promoting your content. Very exciting news. I was doing a little bit of research for this, and then we have there's a surge in podcast in popularity, and research has shown that they have better engagement than any other medium for listeners, for people who participate in podcasting. So I think that is good in terms of advertising, because we cannot get away from that. And there are many podcasts for children as well, and then there can be cross platform like content delivery as well. And wonderfully, this year Google has changed their algorithm to include podcast in their search engine as well. So these are very good things that are coming about, that I think as content creators for children we can really use. So we have everybody in, and then we have some questions. So I would like to invite Mr. Anupam Yadav. You have many questions. Mr. Anupam? Is Mr. Anupam with us?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, Lisa.
Hello.
Anupam.
Yes.
Hello.
Would it be? Could you turn on your camera? Is it possible?
My camera is not working, ma'am.
Ah, okay. Okay. So
my question is, how many hours should every parent ensure that his child is engaged in a meaningful learning activities during COVID-19 pandemic?
Okay. So it is for the panel for the moment. Philo? Ms. Philo? Kaiser?
Okay, that depends on the parent and the kind of time that's available for them, because I will not be able to tell you how much of time every child need to be spending, right? Because nowadays kids have online schools and things like that, and also the availability of the media itself in every home. So that is something that you need to look at. So Anupam, it's quite a tough question. What exactly are you looking at by asking this question? Okay, I hope you can listen to me. Humayun, do you want to add to that?
Well, absolutely right, because children are already into classes on Zoom and other medium. So throughout the day, they are in classroom, you can say, situation in COVID-19. So you can't get them back to it again, to sit in front of it. And it's tiring also to keep on listening all the time and watching something, or not watching, listening to an invisible figure like in my place or other places, in school, classroom situation. So only parents can decide what time they have, whether they have smartphones too, whether they have access to internet, which is available, where they can recharge also. We have to think of many kind of people around the world. It's not just because some people can recharge it again and again, can pay for it, have 4, 3, 5 smartphones in the house. They may not have. They may have one smartphone for all 3 children to attend classes. So again, it depends upon the kind of situation they have, the kind of children you have, and the kind of time they have, and the money they have.
Okay, so I think that's a good way. I mean, I think Anubhav wants to know how much of time children should be given on learning activities. So it's really tough question, but I think children should also, in this COVID situation, is very tough for many children because they're not even allowed to go out and play. Am I right? Most of them are just stuck at home. And the kind of environment that children are living in also needs to be looked at. I remember seeing this video in South America where the child is living in a very confined space, and the child has no, probably, I don't know whether the kid attended school or online classes, but the fact that the mother, the father, and the kind of home that they lived in, how do you determine whether this child is even going to pick up any learning? Because children at this point during COVID, Anupam and everyone else, I think it's a very, very tough time for children because our children today are so used to going out, right? Meals are taken outside, parents take the children out for a movie, playtime is outside. Maybe some of the kids are on the handphone, I don't know. But a lot of outside activities have disappeared. And when we did this webinar on children living in the pandemic, the question we asked children, what did you miss most? The first thing they told us was they missed school and they missed being with their friends. So I think the psychological makeup of the child, the psychosocial issues also need to be looked at before we decide how much of education we're going to bombard on the child. So if you ask me, I think as parents, don't just make this a time for you to teach your children, but also look at how you can communicate, instill good family time, enhance relationship, cooking together, doing stuff together, growing as a family. I think is very important period that this COVID-19 has taught us, the value of time and being with family, right? Because normally your children would just go out and play or be on the phone with their friends. They still are. But parents should use this time to not just teach, but also to make sure that you spend time with your children, understanding them. Okay. But the childhood years disappear fast, right? Anupam, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, Philo.
Yeah.
So since everybody is on the panel as panelist, and then we want everybody to discuss ideas as well, not just to the panel, but to each other, because there are lots of experience here with us on the panel right now. So I would like, if you have anything, not even a question, a statement, if you want to talk a little bit about your experience, please raise your hand on and then we will get to you. And while we are doing that, I have a question from Dr. Mazumdar, who originally pitched this idea to us. And then, Doctor, would you like to ask the question? We would like to see you.
Can you hear me, Lisa?
Yes.
Madam, good afternoon. Kaizar Saab, namaskar. I'm very thankful to Madam Philomena because she had accepted my proposition for this webinar. And I felt, we had been doing too many of webinars on COVID. So I thought, okay, why not concentrate on children, because they form a very important part of our family as well as of our society. And as future leaders of tomorrow, who will be, they'll be deciding on the destiny of the globe. So there are many important issues like environment, especially where we need to educate the children. So on such lines, actually, I had proposed it. I'm so thankful to you, madam, that you had accepted it. What I would like to actually put in front of the House is one issue, and that is what I did when I was the head of program in a All India radio station. We had the blind children. Now, for the blind children, radio was the only window to the world because they could not see. Now, what we did was, as you said, we did that reach out program. We went out to them, we went out to their schools, we talked to them, and we could find out, you know, they have a slightly different sort of a psychology because they have not been able to see the world from their birth. So while talking to them, you know, there are a lot of things, a lot of perspectives that even we learned. And we, as you said, it's very important that children form a large age bracket. So you need to really do your homework to find out what sort of programs and content you're going to deliver for a particular age bracket. Now, even there, though they were all blind, that was one generalization, but even they had that age maturity. So we had a tough time, you know, we had a very tough time doing it. And I tell you, in general, doing a children's program is a very tough job. So you need to be a psychologist, just like you said, madam, that you have to go back to the books to study child psychology, and then you deliver the programs. And that's only how you can attract. And as Kaiser Saab has said, you know, it's very important that we do not keep ourselves confined to the studios anymore. And we go out to them. We go out to the different age groups, the different type of children we have. Everybody is a bud, as you said, a budding flower. Every child has a potential, and it's our responsibility as seniors to groom them so that tomorrow, if they make a wrong decision, it is we who are to be blamed, that we did not tell them that these are things that you should proceed along. These are the right way to go. These are the right way how you make a correct decision. So that is my submission. And I want to learn now, and I want to really understand how people from other countries, that's what my particular interest was. How are they going about, especially the national broadcasters in the countries in the Asia Pacific region? How are they going about producing children's program now when we have a strong competition from the social media? Thank you very much, Lisa. And
thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dipendra. Lisa, may I take that question? Humayun? Right?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, I think Dr. Dipendra brought up a very interesting observation. Radio is known as the medium for the, it's often called a blind medium, right? And that, I think he said it very well, because even in Malaysia on our national English radio station, we discovered that there was a huge group of blind people who were loyal followers of the radio station. Right. And these people were so angry when we actually changed our formats. And I remember them writing, I mean, they were sending out all kinds of notes written by other people, of course, to the radio, saying that, why did you do this? You know, we enjoy this program. So that's when we realized that the potential of radio for this group of people, it is a blind medium and it's catering to a wide range of people. But coming back to Dr. Dipendra, on whether you need to be a child psychologist to do a children's program, I don't really think so. It was just an interest for me because I have a very deep interest in children. And so, you know, I spent years doing a lot of study on this. So that's my first study. But I think anybody who is passionate about children, about doing programming, a creative personality, I think that's the core person who will make a good children's program. You have to be a creative person, you know, because when you come to children, it's all about creativity, right? So I think that's a key essential thing in any radio producer, to be a creative personality, right? Dr. Dipendra? So yeah, so when we are catering for radio, we have to understand that people who are blind are actually listening to us, children who are blind. And I still remember asking this question to a blind child on Deepavali. We did a special program on Diwali, and I asked this kid, here in Malaysia, we say light over darkness, good over evil, those kind of things. And I asked the child, so what does Diwali mean to you, light over darkness? It's a kind of weird question to ask someone who's totally blind. But the child had something else to say. He said, Diwali for me is like, hearing the crackers, eating some stuff. So it was very exciting to hear what their perception of a certain festival or a certain thing is. So we've done a lot of work with disabled children as well, Dr. Dipendra. Yes, thank you.
So much, sir.
Bayun?
Just a minute. Well, absolutely right what you said. Well, I did a program on dreams with children who are blind. What do they dream, basically? What kind of a dream a blind child can have? He hasn't seen anything, she hasn't seen anything. They came up with so many beautiful answers that dreams of blind person. We dream something we have seen or perceived, they have seen nothing. It was very interesting, the observations they make without watching things and without seeing things. They're absolutely wonderful. They are creative, quite creative in that. Another aspect is there was when I was doing the program, a 10-year-old, 11-year-old child came to me. He was blind. He said, I want to participate in the program. So I didn't, for a moment, I had no idea what to do with him. That is the situation we are in, because there are blind children who are quite talented. Blind children who want to do something apart from listening. They also need space. And I think radio provides them a very good space and can provide them a very good space. And what I later on understood from that very child who came to me and said, I want to be part of your programs. Then he went on to do reporting and then do commentaries and whatever you can say, he developed into something very good. But initially I had no idea how to handle a blind child.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kaiser. Good point, well made. I would like to, before we go to Mr. Anupam, he has several questions, and there are other questions, but we have a raised hand from Mr. Ashok. Do you want to ask a question or make a statement, or Mr. Ashok?
Thank you, Olivia. I was listening to all of the panelists, Mr. Kaiser, my friend, Mr. Philo. Things that we are discussing about the children listener who are forgotten now. Being a broadcaster, what I feel, my point of view is that we don't have a professional broadcaster who are having the aptitude and attitude to produce children program in many broadcasting organizations. So we have to train professionals who are having the both aptitude and attitude for the children's program. And what ma'am was saying, that to be a children producer, you need not to be a child psychologist. She was because of her interest. But thing is that what I feel, when you are a producer of children program, you should be a child. And I agree with Mr. Kaiser that children program is for the children, by the children, and of the children. And you are just a catalyst. And being a children only, you can understand what is their need and what they want. And in the present scenario, when we are having a concentrating on the homogeneous or heterogeneous listenership, even when we are going to children listeners, it is not a homogeneous group now, it is a heterogeneous. We are having urban children, we are having rural children, we are having in India, in many countries, we are having tribal children, we are having children who are going to the corporate schools, and we are having children who are going to the government schools. So in different ways, their need, their desire, everything is different, what they want to know and what they should know. So in that way, we are to revamp our children program in all the broadcasting organizations. And what I have learned, I have never booked up the children program, but I have contributed for the children programs in many organizations where I have worked. The thing is that they like music. What some panelists say, they like music feature. And the dying format of broadcasting is the storytelling. we need good storyteller for children.
ওই প্রদীপ আপনি
So we need good storytellers. So we have to train our children how they can be good storytellers. So they can be participants of our own program. So that is my
আপনি যাবেন না ক্রিকেটে চলে
Thank you.
I would ask all the attendees to keep their
আরে বেরি সিরিয়াস কিছু না এত রিমোট এরিয়া কিছুই দেখা হয় না
for the time being, because we have unless you have a statement or question, please.
Lisa, can I add to that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so in addition to what Mr. Ashok has said, with regards to we like in Nigeria here, you talk about that we have various classes of children. You have children from the middle class, upper middle class. You have children from the lower class, and the truth is, their languages differ. The way you would speak to a child in a highbrow area is different from the way you speak to a child who lives in the suburb. In that sense, So in developing stories for them, usually what I try to do is I try to observe my environment. One of the places where I get to see that mix of children, I would say, is in church. There's Sunday school where I get to see a mix of that array of children. I go in there and I sit with them and I observe. I observe those from the upper class and those from not so wealthy environments, and I see the way these children relate with themselves, what they say, So based on what they say and the way they say what they say, I'm able to put together a piece to be able to cater for different classes of children, despite their ages. So I think it's equally important that when we are producing programs for children, we put that in mind. You bringing yourself down to their level. Now, I see a child. There was a video that went viral sometime in Nigeria about a child who was to go to school and couldn't get to school. I think she didn't have the money, And the child's tenacity and the way she spoke, and she didn't speak in English. She spoke in Pidgin, which is the language of the streets. For that child, and her Pidgin was better than my Pidgin because that's her lingua, and then you can't compare that to a child who lives in the highbrow area who probably has a problem with the teacher. So if I'm going to script for children like that, I have to be conscious of that environment and conscious of who I am talking to, because if I would lose a child in the lower, in the suburb, if I try to speak like a child in the middle class or in the upper middle class, So I think all those things are part of the things that we should put together when we're trying to create content for children.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Nwando. That's a good point, actually. Different accent, not only dialects, not only language, but accents also come into play when we are producing content. So that is a good point that you made. We have a very good participation from all the people coming in. So there is one from Mr. Bukhari who wants to share a suggestion.
It is a very good step that AIBD took. I suggest that same kind of session should be arranged for content creators of TV. As in Pakistan, no TV channel is producing any kids drama or program or any kind of content for the kids. Indeed, it was a very informative session. We have learned very different perspective for producing a children program. Thanks AIBD for arranging such a nice session. Thanks from PTV Pakistan Television.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Bukhari, right? Shah Bukhari. Yes, thank you so much for being so attentive. I think very interesting thoughts have come today. And Mr. Humayun, if I may add a few things, I might differ from you in answering this question, right? Mr. Ashok said an interesting thing about training, isn't it, Ashok? Because I think everyone needs some amount of training before you embark on any programming. None of us are geniuses where we switch on the mic and just able to communicate. I don't think it's easy. So my strong point was because I was trained by, I was working with the BBC, with Deutsche Welle, with a lot of radio stations that were producing children's and also TV content, actually. So I think that attributed to why I was very interested in children's programs, because I had a wide exposure for a very long time. But coming back to training, I think training is a core element for radio today, because in training, we can train you to do different types of programs. There were many questions on the chat. How do you give, what kind of content? How do you talk to children? Even interviewing techniques. How do you speak with the child? You don't just dodge a microphone on the child's face, you know. There's a way to talk to children, because kids are scared of microphones. So how would you talk to children? So all these require training. And how do you question them, right? Those kind of questions and talking and approach requires a lot of training, like Ashok said, because we cannot just go into children's programming. It needs a lot of training. The second point that I want to make is about what you're saying, Humayun, children's program for children, by children, made by children. Now that's something that I will dispute a little bit, because for very young children, they still need a host, right? A host like us, right? Because it's very difficult for children to talk to children unless they're sharing something. So, but for teenagers to talk to teenagers is fine. You can get an 18-year-old to talk to 14, 15, 16, 17. They're all right. They identify with the peers. But for smaller children, you can co-host, meaning that if I'm doing it, I have another kid with me who's co-hosting together with me. That's fine. But you wouldn't let the child be the main person talking, because it's overwhelming for a kid, actually. And they're not able to sometimes understand or gauge things, which an adult would. So what I was saying is, you don't become an educator. You're not an educationist on radio. You're merely a friend, and you're somebody who's listening to the child and giving him or her a space to identify and talk and share. So that's what radio does. So there are many, many interesting thoughts that I'm seeing on the chat as well. People are sharing personally with me also that every child is different, and radio has to be that medium that provides a space for children. Again, I say what Mr. Bhushan mentioned a while ago. Should children be given a space on radio? They should. And all radio programmers should really look at this seriously, because the future of radio also depends on this group of listeners, your children. So that's my perception. And I hope that you enjoyed listening to what we have to share. It's good that Nwando came on, because she's representing the current generation of young listeners who are totally challenged by, you have so many challenges, not just radio. Some of us are lucky because at that time there was only radio. But today you have so many mediums, right? So radio has to be extra interactive if it wants to win over children. Yeah, so I think that was a good sharing. Okay, it's back to Ryan.
Right. Ms. Philomena, what you said is, I shared that also. And Mr. Ashok has also pointed out that you get children to contribute to programs, come up with ideas, but naturally, an elder will put them into practice, those ideas. But again, as you said, you talk to children. I don't believe in talking to children. No, let the children speak. You are not supposed to talk to children or make them talk.
Means, sorry, Kaiza. Sorry. I have to butt and stop you. Talk doesn't mean talking. Talk means sharing, asking them to talk. Like I would ask them, like somebody said, what do you dream about? I think that's a brilliant question that you asked. So those, nobody, I would never have thought of that, but you've asked that wonderful question, and I'm so curious to listen to your program. What I mean is, we ask them something and they give us answers. We have to lead them on. We have to lead that questioning, isn't it?
Definitely. You create a situation where a child is able to speak. Again, as you said, I also believe that. Don't leave the program to children alone. You guide them, you control it in a way that children also like that you do it, because they may not be able to do it. But, still, children, when they say something or they ask another child something, listen to that also, use that also. We have been using that. You must also have been using that. Ideas that are generated by children cannot be generated by my adult mind. So those and the feelings they generate and the things they want to listen to or things they share with each other, only they do it at their age and their level. That cannot be done at my age, or even by a teenager. Again, as we say that we can talk to teenagers because they can share with each other. I think teenagers are more delicate than these toddlers or less than 10-year-old, because teenager it's an age in which you are neither an adult nor a child, and then handling is more sensitive, more difficult than in case of a child, where child will listen to you more often than a teenager would. And here, ma'am, I would like to raise another issue that we also face here. You could have some better ideas on that. Gender sensitivity is an important issue at present in our region also, all over the world also. How do we go about that for children?
That's a very tough question you're asking me about gender sensitivity. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I think we can I ask, because we have so many questions on children right now, can I ask gender sensitivity to be put aside maybe for another session?
All right. I'm not so yeah, so that's thank you, Lisa.
I'm not talking of adults, I'm talking of children itself. It grows from them and then it results into something else when they become elders. That's
show a lot of show a balance of boys and girls. Don't just show boy achievers. Or nowadays, I think the poor boys are suffering because most of the women are taking the men's jobs. So I don't see an issue. Actually, I feel very sorry for men. Sorry, ladies, but I think the world is shifting. You know, there's a lot of jobs, and even if you look at the UN and all these places, women are holding top positions today. And so I don't know whether this thing is still going relevant.
Okay, so that's also a point made by Philo. We have many questions. Again, Mr. Anupam Yadav has been persistently asking a lot of questions. Mr. Anupam, you can ask one question, and we'll have to go to another participant before we come to you. If you want to ask the question, Mr. Anupam.
Anupam, are you listening? He has many questions on the chat. Yes.
Okay, let me ask.
Yes, I'm listening.
We are waiting for your question.
Okay, the question is, you're breaking up, Mr. Yadav.
COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, how many hours a day? No, this question we have already answered.
Activities service broadcasting.
Okay.
The question is, what fun and simple activities programs can be a public service broadcaster do to make learning fun for children during COVID-19 pandemic? Is that the question, Mr. Anupam?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah.
There's a lot of things that you can do here.
Not only for the panel, not only for our expert speakers. We can open it up for the panel. If you have suggestions, you can put it in the chat as well, and then jump in. But I would start with our two expert speakers.
I think this is somebody else could answer this question. There's a lot of fun things that you can do for children. You can have, yes.
Andra, you are actively producing programs right now. Would you like to take that question? Are you there with us? I think we got disconnected.
Who is this?
From Nigeria, Miss Wando.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question here is, what fun and simple activities program for public service broadcasters can do to make learning fun for children during COVID-19 pandemic?
Oh, okay, well, wow, during this, still in the period of COVID-19, it's been very challenging, you know, especially having to keep children at home and having to make them study and all that. It's one of the fun things we can do, really. And I would always say, children have a language. They have a language. They have a style. You know, so if I'm going to develop content for a 3-year-old, it will not be the same content I would develop for a 5-year-old or develop for a 7 or for a teenager. you know. So I think first of all, we need to even understand the space first of all. So one of the things that we can do, I noticed with kids, I remember growing up, when we grew up with the likes of Sesame Street and all that, there's a lot of use of rhymes, a lot of use of repetition, a lot of use of singing, you know, so things like that, you know, we could bring that back in radio for children, you know, fun songs, you know, you are learning, but at the same time, you are being entertained. So it's not strictly learning. We are not like in a class-like environment. You know, when I hear songs like, you take a B, there's a B, and a U, and on. You put them all together, and that spells born. It's born. I have learned how to spell born without even realizing that I'm learning how to spell born. You know, so, you know, when we should put more fun into that, you know, make it more interactive. You know, there's this show now on one of our radio stations here in Nigeria, and it's a quiz program. But the way the presenter carries the program, and you hear children say Auntie D, and they're all excited, and I'm like, kids wake their parents up to listen. Mommy, you have to buy some minutes into this phone. I need to call Auntie D. And those are one of the very few programs we have that are very engaging for children. So there's a lot of singing, a lot of singing. You're making use of the imagination. So children are in their own world. They are thinking they are in their own sky. You know, they are seeing their own princesses and princes. You know, so one of the ways we can make it fun for them is bring in the things, speak their language. They love to sing. They love to dance. So it's not all school. Don't make it all hard. School. You know, make school fun. You know, so it's more of edutainment for them. You know?
Yes, indeed. That also can be used not only in school but for education program that we can do over the radio as well. I'm sure they will do it. I have another question from Mr. Muined Dunmid. He says children are known to be very fickle-minded, and the radio as a blind medium can sometimes be boring even to adults. How do you sustain children's attention on radio? I think you answered part of the question as well, but I would like to throw this question to the panel. Anybody want to take up this question? How can you make boring radio program fun for children? This is to the content producers we have with us today.
So if the program is boring, then how do you make it fun?
Yes.
Or you want to create a fun program for children. So that requires a lot of techniques. I think a while ago, you were saying about the duration of children's program, right, Lisa?
Yeah.
So you were talking about the way children's program should be, the techniques that should be employed in a children's program, and how lengthy should a children's program be. I think that is something that we need to look at as well, timing and so forth. But I think different techniques need to be employed, because children's attention span, one of you mentioned this, children's attention span really is not going to be there for a long time, right? Because their mind switches, goes off. So I think the kind of techniques that you use is very important, okay? So like Nwando said, she does drama, but you cannot do a very lengthy drama, no? So a drama which is short, mini dramas. I remember when I did children's programs, there was always a mini documentary, a mini drama, a mini this, mini that, and then a space where children are sharing. So there were multiple techniques used in one program. Even when a live show, we have multiple techniques. We could have, I used to go to a river, perhaps, you know, I went downstream and then I sort of recorded the live thing, the fun thing that I was doing with others. I said, hey, you know what, we saw this, we saw that, and then the sound of water, the sound of real sound effects. So all that actually added color. The story here is color, adding color to your program. I think that's what is the key factor. Most of you asked fun. It's also adding color, adding a lot of things into your program that will make your show better. Okay, because you always think in TV you have to go out shooting, right? How many of you actually go out for radio, right? Some of my programs that have won awards are programs where I was in a jungle and I was actually having my microphone and my recorder and saying, okay, I'm walking into the jungle and what do I see? I hear a sound. Oh my goodness, what could that be? Right? And then look, this is the lost rhino. And we only have one rhino left in Malaysia. And then everybody is like, and what happens? And then I get a doctor who says, a veterinarian who says, Philo, the rhinos have been hunted for their horn, what do you call this thing? The horn, and for medicinal purposes. And, so it's a lot of information, but it's put in a very fun way, right? And then I remember that we did a program with the zoo when a giraffe was born in the zoo, and we asked the children, what name would you give the giraffe, baby giraffe? So everybody was guessing names. And then finally, the zoo adopted the name given by one of the kids. So it was a very fun thing that we did. So sometimes I just want to share this. A lot of you have asked this question, what kind of content to give children? Mr. Humayun also was saying this. Actually, what I did was a focus group every now and then, a focus group with children. And then you call them to the studios, you have a little bit of, popcorn and whatever things that you have for kids. And then you ask them to talk and then you record them, right? They are just talking. They don't know they're being recorded. So, and then you ask them, what do you actually want to hear on radio or see on television? So many children will tell you they want to have funny things, even on television. They want to hear funny stories. They want to have fun. They want to laugh because life is too serious. School is too serious. Everything is too serious. They want to have a bit of fun. So at the end of the day, you realize that you need to add the element of fun, enjoyment into children's programs, be it radio or television.
Okay. Thanks,
right?
Yeah, we are running a little bit over time, but I will do one question. If anybody has a question, I would like somebody to ask the question instead of writing on the, so if anybody has a question right now, a statement, you can put up your hand. So I think there are a lot of questions but mostly it is on training part of it. And then I think from the questions, we will be taking all these questions and putting it together and maybe formulating a training, and then this will be later.
Lisa, can you hear me?
Yes.
I've got I want to know from all the members present here. In India, we do celebrate the International Children's Day of Broadcasting, which comes on the first Sunday in March. I wanted to know if other countries also celebrate this day when we actually hand over the transmission, one particular transmission to the children, of course, with expert and senior supervision. We cannot, as Madam Philomena was saying, we cannot leave the whole transmission to toddlers. We usually do that with teenagers. So do other countries also celebrate that day, the International Children's Day of Broadcasting?
Okay. So
yeah, everybody does.
For that question, may I ask the panelists to write their country name in the chat box so we know which countries do that?
Okay.
Right.
But I think Children's Day is being celebrated in most countries, in schools especially. So in Malaysia, we have it. I think many countries do that.
So in India does that. Pakistan, is Pakistan, how about Malaysia?
Yeah, we have children's, every October is children's program, what do you call that? Children's Day celebrations. So a nationwide Children's Day celebrations are normally held in Malaysia. Right. So it's quite normal, I think. This is like a UN or international thing that we do.
Does Nigeria do children's
Do
program?
we leave the transmission to the children, madam?
Yeah.
No, there's nothing on radio per se. I mean like celebrations outside.
No, I was talking about radio or in television. Do we leave the transmission to the children and let them do, like, as they were saying, for the children, of the children, by the children?
Yeah, sometimes we do that. That's a good question. We have things like that. So on Children's Day, they come on the studio and probably talk what they want to talk, and they try to be a DJ. You've got to make people excited about being a radio presenter, So that's why we call the children to ask them to be the DJ for the day. So how would you be a radio personality? So it's some interesting things that you see. Television as well.
In all this also we used to do that, where we invite the children, and one day would be only children's faces would be on air or the radio. So on that one day, they would be operating everything. They would be the DJ, the host, the anchor. They would do everything. But this was, I'm not sure it is going on now.
No, from my part of the world, it's not. Well, we used to, not in my station. In other stations, I had seen that growing up. I'd been one of the few who had experienced that. But now, no, the children they don't handle anything. The most that we do for the kids is we spend a bit more time on their own kind of programming, but that they don't anchor. They don't open the station. They don't do any of those things. They don't stay with the studio manager. No, don't do that.
Okay, thank you. So I think that's all the time.
I think Lisa, Vikas has a question. Vikas, do you have a question? There's something that you wanted to share.
Yeah, not really. I was just wanting to share something. Once you have a combination of television and radio, like we are Mauritius Broadcasting Corporation, then it really works hand in hand. Like you said, going outside and creating interest. We guys go to schools and we talk to people, so they get really influenced and happy and motivated about a language, a program, and just to be knowing that they're going to be a part of the program, and that would be showcased on the national television, and then they'll get a chance to be in the studio. So I think this is the kind of formula that we need to work on, because after the COVID confinement period, everybody shifted to the social networking sites, and I'm making a video sharing it rather than the national TV showing it, and again getting that attention and attraction. So I think this is another way from pulling those people who've got addicted or spending more time on the social networking to get them back to the channels. And even when the parents know that this is the national radio, and if a kid's program is being done, it'll be within certain parameters, it can't go wrong. Whereas a kid having a smartphone, he can or she can go anywhere. There's no control. And like you said, some host has to be there to give the guidelines, things happening in a I would say not a controlled atmosphere, but yes, having that fun bit, but at least we know what's the storyline, and that would also get the dynamics and the surprise elements.
I think that's a very good observation, because you got it right there. And most importantly, as a radio program person, right, for children, this is also for journalists, for anybody who is following this program right now. I think it's very important. Children always are very impatient, So when you've done this interview, when you've done this kind of things with their voices, you've recorded them, the first question they will ask you is, when is this going to come out on TV or radio? And then they will go back and tell everybody, Mom, I was on radio, I was on TV, and you have to fulfill your promise. So what I do is,
That's it.
That
is
very important. Very important, yes. So you need to call the school. So what I do is I make it a big event. I call the school and tell them, hey, listen, for the next 2 weeks on Trax FM, we're going to put this on the radio. And please get the children to listen. So the school would do a special, announcement. And, it really there's a lot of engagement going on. And it's a good way of selling your radio station, getting people all hyped about. And it's very important trait for journalists as well. Even when you interview people, I've interviewed a lot of people, because I'm also a journalist by profession. So I always tell them, you know what, your interview is coming out at this time on radio or TV. And this person said, Philo, you are the only person in this whole of, the only person who actually called to say your voice is coming out on radio or you're going to be on TV. Thank you so much, So I think this is something that I hope everybody follows, because it's so important to have follow-up.
And also, like they say, proximity with your listeners. So when you go to the people, they're pretty excited about a channel coming to their place, their location. They go back and talk about this. And also you amongst the public, the listeners, the end users. So you get to know what's the feedback, what do they want. So it's a win-win situation.
Absolutely, because you got it right. I just want to share one last thing. Where is my good friend Humayun? He's going to give up on me. But this is something that children's program producers can start in schools. One of the things we started, it's actually the brainchild from I told you I was passionate. So we started this thing called, the radio station's name is Trax FM. So we started something called Trexter in every school. So we go to the schools and then we sort of hype up. Today's world, you have to be visual, so they need to see who's the DJ or who the person from the station is. So we go to the station, to the schools, we ask questions, we give away some prizes, and then we create a Traxter club. So they become hooked onto your radio. This is not children's program alone, it's also for the entire radio. So this mechanism also helps to build brand loyalty. I'm sure you do it in India, in Mauritius, Africa. So this is very important because there's a sense of belonging that we create. So that's another point that I just wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great
Yeah.
point. Yeah, I think that is what is happening. Like the children, they don't have a sense of belonging that they used to have. There is no loyalty that they can actually show to one brand because they are right now forgotten, and we need more and more passionate people like yourself to make content and actually bring them on and then make their voices heard. On that note, I would like to end this session. I'd like to thank NABM and Mr. Sashi Bhushan Mukesh, the additional DG of NABM, and Mr. P. Das, Deputy Director General, and speaker Ms. Philo and Mr. Kaiser and Ms. Nuando for her case study and presentation. And very special thanks to Dr. Mazumdar for pitching this to us and then working with us on this, and our participants who have sat through with us for over 2 hours, sharing their experience with that. So I would like to thank all of you for participating in this workshop. Our next workshop would be on 5th November, AIBD RTB in country workshop on 360 effective marketing and advertising for radio and television programming. We'll be having it next week, Thursday. I hope we will have more participation, and this is not the end of radio content for children. This is a part of series that we can carry forward, and then we will see a lot of you back, and then you will share more information and case studies as well with us. So thank you so much, and thank you for joining us, and have a very good day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining from Mauritius, Vikas, and also Pakistan, India, Africa.
Thank you from Pakistan.
Like to say and chit chat and network. We will.
Thank you, Buhari. Okay, I think this is
Thank
really
you.
good.
Thank you.
Can
Thank
we do a
you.
group photo?
Yeah, of course. Why not?
All right.
Yeah.
How is COVID in Mauritius?
Actually, there are no local cases, and all those people who are coming back from other countries and back to Mauritius is why we're having some imported cases, but all under observation. So the local
Thank you very much,
population is
Philomena. Thank you.
Whose voice is that?
You can say COVID-free.
COVID-free. So no, I don't. That's really fantastic. And there are a lot of countries but you're not getting any tourists, I'm sure.
No, not for now.
Yeah, you're not opening for tourists. So I think AIBD is supposed to do a general conference the year after in Mauritius. So I really hope to see all of you there, right?
Pleasure.
And probably do more training in Mauritius as well, webinars, specific webinars for just Mauritius. We're doing that with every country. So I hope that I can do that with each of you, right? Just let us know your training needs. Okay. So Nabil, yes, the photograph, please.
Yes. So can everyone turn on their webcams so we can have a nice.
I forgot about the.
We have the
This
webcam.
is an audio one. This is not a video one. This is radio.
Yeah, but still we need to be visual.
Of course.
Mr. Das is still there. Mr. Bhushan, right?
Video supplement.
Can we like?
Can we have Mr. P. Das, Mr. Shashi, Mr. Anupam Yadav, Mr. Nadeem Malik, and we still have so many people. Oh wow!
We have.
Yeah, second
I
page.
think this is the best webinar. Everyone is staying till the end.
Yeah, and they are so active.
All right. So I'll just count 1, 2, and then I will be moving to second page. But since no one knows who is where, so just bear with me. for 6 seconds. So 1, 2, 3. Let me just check. All right, another picture. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Humayun, thank you.
very much.
You spoke really well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Humayun. Thank you, Dr. Dipendra. Thank you, everybody. Right?
Yeah.
Thank
We
you.
would be
Keep the good.
questions that you've just
Nice meeting you.
asked as well. It will be in our. We will be looking at it and seeing for the next training session how we can answer the questions.
Yeah. Also, I think we need to look at training because to do children's programming, we need to understand the techniques that are involved. There's a lot of techniques of production skills. So that I think needs to be looked into.
I think that we can continue with that since we have, as we said, we started with a series. So in the next episode, next session, maybe we can take up those, techniques.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely. Right? Maybe in Kuala Lumpur when it's COVID-free. We still have many cases in Malaysia.
We can
We're not opening the
webinar also.
Yeah, webinar is also possible.
Everyone, I hope if I could add to this, I wish we were able to talk about funding for programs because this thing requires a level of funding. Unfortunately, we're not able to dwell on that today because to sustain a program over a period of time.
Could you repeat that? If we didn't get that.
So I said, beautiful conversations we have able to talk about funding, commercial engagement for these programs, because to have a program sustained over a period of time, you need some level of funding and support, So maybe in subsequent conversations, we can talk about how we can write proposals for funding and support to get programs supported over a period of time.
Talking about funding and support, right?
Yes.
Okay. That is a question that we can certainly look at on later training sessions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Humayun. We should do some program together again. This time around, you do the training.
You, Mr. Dr. Mazumdar, I at last saw you. Dr. Mazumdar was not feeling well, but you joined and you participated.
Hope you're feeling better, doctor. Doctors cannot get sick, Where is he? Just joking.
So we have Mr. Ghaffari from Bangladesh.
I said, Doctor.
Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum.
Who is from Bangladesh?
Ghaffari.
Ghaffari.
Hi. I can't see him.
His camera is not.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. My regards to NIMC and everybody at Betar and yes.
Mr. Bukhari, how is the situation with children's content for Pakistan right now?
In Pakistan, I think there is no channel which is producing any program for kids. I think even our channel is not producing any special program for kids. 3 or 4 years before, we had many programs, and especially we had a slot of nearly 50 minutes every day for programs of kids. But nowadays, none of the channel is producing anything. And in radio and FM, there is nothing for kids. I think in 24 hours, we have only few commercials that are produced for kids only. Other than, even we don't have any special program for youth. We have all programs for entertainment, and especially in our country, the news media is more given the preferences. So in our country, we are trying that we produce any special program for kids, but there are many concerns like funding. We don't have any funding. We don't have any special kids broadcast day. So I think in Pakistan, it is not a very good situation for kids.
Mr. Chaturvedi, are you with Prasabharti, the producer? You're not a producer. So maybe Mr. Yadav is a producer, right?
Yadav is very active.
Yeah. Are you a producer with AIR?
I would like to add that a few years back, I think 15 years back, there was one channel, a private channel back in Pakistan. It was meant for 24 hours kids channel. So they tried to sustain for more than 2 years, but after that, the whole project wasn't sustainable because they were constantly producing kids content by the kids. But since it was a private entity, they couldn't sustain and they had to wind it up. So yeah, it's a bit difficult thing to produce something for kids, which has a sustainable model.
Another thing I want to add, I'm not a radio producer, but I was a children's program producer for TV. A very sad thing that happens, at least within this region, is like the children's program producers are the youngest, the most inexperienced. So they are like a training part of it. So once they are good, they are taken out and given to other like dramas and entertainments and things. So children's program are usually very inexperienced. So there is a huge issue with training. And if we look at if you look at countries or stations that does well with children's program, like Australia, like they have a huge budget, and then we import those programs and then we show it to our kids, and then they have a cultural identity crisis because they grow up with these foreign looking people, foreign sounding people, and then they cannot relate in that way. So there is also an issue that I find that is very prevalent in this region.
Yeah, I would like to quickly, okay.
Very correct. Madam Philomena, I just wanted to share one thing with you. As you were saying, like doing our own public relations, with the schools, what I had done actually when I was the head of program in a particular All India radio station in Assam was that, the government had implemented a midday meal scheme. That is, the children were not required to bring their tiffin. The school had provided for the lunch. Now, what I did was I had gone to that school to organize a quiz, and I had taken a lot of soap cakes with me, small soap cakes, and I had, for the winners of the quiz, I had different prize sets, and for the past questions, whichever children they answered it correctly, I had handed over that soap. And I made sure, I asked the teachers that before they sit for the midday meal, please ensure that they wash their hands with those soap cakes that I have presented. And after they are finished, please ensure that their parents send one piece of soap in their school bag when they come to school. So that way their hygiene is maintained. And plus, as you said, I could, establish that public relation with that school. And they were so enthusiastic, they listened to that quiz program. We had brought it back. We had broadcast it from our station. So that is, as you said, very correct. And we can always create that brand image for our station when we reach out to the children in their schools, and we take advantage of those where the government is also doing something, and we try to promote that. We help the government in that sanitizing measure.
I think that's a very good thing that you've done. Talking about prizes, that's a good way, right? Hand washing, and I think it's very applicable with COVID-19 now. This is something that all schools should start with. They'll probably go back to school. But talking about prizes, right? Some of you might be asking, we don't have the money or the funds to give gifts when you go to school. Because normally when you visit the children, normally it's a practice to give them something as well. So what can you do? Sometimes you can give them rich experience, meaning an experience of coming to the radio station, right? coming and taking a photograph or being a DJ for a short time. So those are rich experiences that you can give to a child. And they like that. They remember that a lot better than giving them some present or something, right? So we need to look at that rich experiences.
Yeah, to ask what you said, Ms. Philomena, I remember each time I have to bring them to the studio, I notice that kids enjoy hearing themselves. So when we do the recording, I play back. And it's like, is this the way I sound? And there's so much excitement, you know, and there's always a reason to want to come back, and all. Then I wanted to add to what Eliza said about the culture shock, you know, because we have a lot of that now. So usually what I try to do most times in my script is I try to fuse in because I try to fuse in our language for certain characters, you know. So when the children are acting, there are certain words in our language that should be said. You know, though we try to do the interpretation, you know, you say, let me give an example. Give an example like Kedru, which means how are you in Igbo language. So Kedru, how are you? You know, but it's deliberate so that we are not all Western, or we don't forget who we are as a people, you know, because we're actually trying to fuse in this into the mindset of these children. So usually I try to be careful to put in a language so we don't totally lose out on our culture, because as you said, there's a lot of culture shock. They hear so many things. You know, we have our own folktales, but there's so many stories about the mermaids, and we don't have mermaids folktales. Our folktales are not about mermaids. You know, so we have folktales about the tortoise, we have folktales about the lion, and we don't have those stories being told more, you know, because we are importing. You know, so I try to be careful or conscious of that particular space. And whilst we do this children program, we try to infuse that into the storytelling. So they are part of that, they grow up in that space, you know. Then lastly now, another thing I wanted to add was one of the challenges that we face is culture. For us is culture, and probably with regards to having parents who do not really understand why their children should be used in a production, allow you use their children. So you get to see children who get involved in radio productions. The few you get to see are those whose parents are already in the system. They understand the system, you know. But when you see a gifted child whose mother who's not probably very educated, and she feels you're trying to take advantage of my child, you know. So it's either she insists that you pay something, or they become superstitious, you know. So we have those challenges, you know, trying to get children actors to get involved in some productions that you want to do.
Yeah, I think when you're, be careful of parents, you know. One of the biggest threats that any radio or TV producer can face is parents who come and threaten you, or who say why my child was not getting this role. So whenever you're doing something, make sure the parents are not around. Yeah. Because that is the biggest roadblock to your doing programs. We get it all the time.
You know what I'm learning from this? I'm learning that radio program producers can really talk substantial things for hours.
So we have to stop now.
If we keep this live, tomorrow also we'll be here still discussing ideas. This has been a wonderful session, but I really must take your leave as well.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you, everybody. Namaste. See you all. Buhari.